On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, Philadelphia falls short in Milwaukee in a big way. Can we look at that as a statement game from the Milwaukee Bucks to the 76ers? We'll dissect it next, right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePick. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. What's poppin', D?
A new week, Keith, and the final week of the NBA season, man. That's what's popping right now.
It's been a quick, long season, if that makes sense. Like, it's been fast, but it's been a lot going on. You know,
because we remember when we first started.
Yeah.
And here we are. It's at the end of the regular season. Things are winding down. Things are kind of falling into place now as far as the standings go. And are we learning a lot here in this final week with the Milwaukee Bucks starting things off for the Sixers? But we'll get into that as we begin things. Welcome. You are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host and partner, as always, Keith Pompey from the Inquirer.com, Sixers beat writer extraordinaire. And we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube at Locked On 76ers. Keith, a 117-104 Sunday night loss, a highly anticipated game between Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks, hosting Joel Embiid and the 76ers. And it was basically kind of over before it really even got started, man. The Milwaukee Bucks got off to a very, very hot start. 8 for 8, perfect from the floor on their first 8 shots, making their first 4 3-pointers, Keith. And while the Sixers were still shooting decently from the field during that stretch, it's hard to beat a team, or at least catch up to a team, if you're not shooting that 100% like they were. And that was a part of the problem. And even when they did miss a shot, I remember you tweeting it out, the first miss that they had, Brook Lopez got an offensive rebound and scored right there at the front of the rim. So it was almost one of those things, Keith, that we've seen this before from the Sixers. And I remember the game against the Chicago Bulls on the road where they went to United Center and they jumped on that Chicago Bulls team and never let up. They beat them really badly. In this case, the Sixers did use that third quarter to start things off very well. Tyrese Maxey and others getting things going in the scoring column, getting as close to 5 points, Keith. But then Milwaukee responded, and that was pretty much the end of the game. So what were your main takeaways from this one, and how much do you look at this as something that we should be worried about as we focus on the Sixers as much as we do, even though, Keith, the series was 2-2 this year?
Yeah, that's a great question, D, because, like, you know what? I keep going back and forth. And, you know, D, we've been covering this thing for a long time. Like, there are certain times where you look at games and you say to yourself, like, well, they just didn't have it this night. And you look at it, and you also look at it where you see, the one thing is, a lot of times people say Doc Rivers makes excuses. They all say that, right? But he was correct when he said that, you know what? Milwaukee just came off a game where they were lost by 40-something points. They had a couple days to think about it. They were motivated. Not only that, were they motivated by that loss, they were also motivated because the Sixers had the upper hand in them in the last 2 games that they played. And I felt like they wanted to come out and they wanted to make a statement against the 76ers. When we look at this game, there were certain things that we didn't see that we saw in the past, whereas Joel Embiid guarded Giannis. He didn't do that. This one too much. Nope. He did not. It was the Sixers are extremely vanilla on certain things. And so you can look at it and you can say to yourself, like, all right, it was a bad performance. I'm a little concerned. But also you can look at it and say, you know what? This is just one game. It didn't look good. and let's move on, right? I mean, can James Harden play any worse than he played? Probably not. He disappeared. Joel wasn't his normal aggressive self. The bench was horrible, right? So you can look at it and you can just say, listen, get to the playoffs and let's play. Now, if they continue to lose and struggle, then you got something different. But I look at it and I'm more of the, and typically I'm real critical, but I didn't like what I saw. They looked like they didn't deserve to be on the floor with them. But at the same time, I don't think I'm ready to hit the panic button just yet. You know what
Okay,
I mean?
and that's interesting because,
Yeah.
like you said, you look at it and you look at it objectively the way that you do, and you can be critical at times, but you also give them credit when you feel like credit is due. And there's nothing really to take out of that one as far as credit go, because that was a poor performance, and Milwaukee just jumped on them. Sixers scored 104 points. We've seen them win games that way where they've scored 104, but their defense has been so good that they win the game. And the other team doesn't come close, or they hold them off some single digit victory in that particular one. But in this case, you're right, man. It was just one of those where a 41-point loss to the Boston Celtics on Thursday night, down by 49, embarrassed on national television. And you had a second game like the Sixers do on Tuesday, where they play and host the Boston Celtics, where they had a chance to make it up. And that makeup was against the 76ers. And not only that, it was of this is the last meeting we're going to have. We see it. They see it. They're the top seed. Boston's the second seed, and the Sixers are the third seed. So if everything holds the way that it should, Boston is going to face the Sixers in the second round, and Milwaukee is going to face Cleveland if it holds serve of 1 through 4. And whoever comes out of that second round matchup of the Celtics and the Sixers, they're going to face the Bucks. And the Bucks are also probably looking ahead because they can, as champions over the last couple of seasons, they can look ahead and say, let's not only regroup from the loss that we had against Boston, but let's show this other team that has a 2-1 series lead on us through this first 3 games. If we do play them in the Eastern Conference Finals, they have to come here. So let's not allow them to walk out of here with a 3-1 series lead, thinking that they can really come in here and beat us. Let's send a message, just like we talked about them, the Sixers, going in there in these last 2 games, possibly sending a message to the Bucks and the Celtics. It didn't work out against Milwaukee. So let's see if it works out against Boston on Tuesday night. And we'll get to that on our next podcast. But this one just the Sixers didn't play well enough. So no, I'm not giving them any credit for anything except for the run in the third quarter. But I'm also, as you said, I'm not panicked where I felt like they were a good matchup against Milwaukee. I still believe that they have better things coming off the bench and they seem like a better unit as a team. But I still believe that the Sixers can stand on the floor with the Milwaukee Bucks despite that beatdown that they received, because I just thought that Milwaukee had them the entire night and they dominated it. We've seen the Sixers dominate on that night, on Sunday night. It happened to them. And that's something that they have to learn from and make sure that they don't let it happen in the playoffs, no matter who they face in the quarterfinals, the semifinals, or the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I agree. Now, like some holes that they have. They have some holes.
That's why I said Milwaukee is.
Yeah, Milwaukee's better than. I shouldn't say better than what people think because they got the best record in the NBA. But
right, yeah.
You look at their bench. They got like 4 guys that come off the bench or at least 3 of them that come off the bench that you can say would start for the Sixers. You know what I mean?
Like being one of them.
Bobby Portis being one, Joe Ingles being another. He could start for the Sixers. And I also think that Jay Crowder could. I do. I do. The point guard, Javon Carter, he'd be a backup point guard. But, there's some pretty big dudes. Jay Crowder, he's 6'6", but probably 250, right? Joe Ingles, everybody was saying he lost a step, but he was out there being the flamethrower. And then you got Bobby Portis. People forget Bobby Portis 6'11", doing all those things.
18 points off the bench.
18 points, and we ain't even talking about Pat Connaughton, right? Who didn't play?
Who didn't play?
Who didn't play?
Right.
So I mean, that team is deep, man. That team is deep, but the Sixers, they got work to do. But at the same time, we just both been in this game long enough to know that a late season game, sometimes you want them to show up. You do. But I keep going back to when we used to get excited over the Sixers beating the Celtics that one season. And Joel said, yes, this is finally a rivalry because we got them. And everybody was all excited. And then they got swept in the playoffs by Boston. So, you know what I mean? Like you can't really show too much emotion at this particular time. You just can't. Now, if there's things are trending a certain way,
Sure.
yeah, but you can't show too much emotion, in my opinion.
Well, some things in terms of a game like this on Sunday night, two different sides of the emotions from the winning locker room and the losing locker room. And in this case, we need to talk about the losing locker room. Keith, you being in Milwaukee and us, I know the team a little bit, you know it better, but how these guys respond to something like this? How will they respond to a game like this when they now have to face Boston at home? And we'll see what it was like there last night after they lost. And also, Keith, something that you wrote in your great story on Sunday talking about Joel Embiid and him speaking about winning championships, but also team success during the regular season and how he views it, not just for him, the organization, but also the fan base. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But first, after this quick timeout, we'll come back and we'll get into what it was like after the game and how things were viewed from the head coach and the players in the locker room in Milwaukee. We'll do that next right here, Locked On 76ers.
Tomorrow night, I'm taking Luka Doncic to score more than 26.5 points. LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds. Kevin Durant to have less than 6.5 assists. And Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 3-pointers, right? What I'm talking about is this is prize picks. And with prize pick, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go score more or less than their prize pick projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you and the projections available. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. Download the PrizePick app or go to prizepick.com to sign up and play your daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePick will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePick will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On to sign up for instant deposit matchup for $100.
Welcome back. You are Locked On 76ers. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Devon Givens, and we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next, check out the Locked On Now podcast for nightly recaps of every NBA game. No NBA games on Monday night with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. All right, Keith, you were on the ground there in Milwaukee. You heard Doc Rivers. I heard Doc Rivers for my post-game stuff for the game, and some of the listeners, viewers, and the fans also were able to hear Doc Rivers. What was his tone after the game? He often talks about the execution, turnovers. There weren't a lot of turnovers in the game. James Harden had a high turnover game, but as a team, they didn't turn the ball over as much. But what was his message after the game? As you guys talked about it, he did seem a little frustrated, talking about a couple of things, some directed towards your way as you asked your questions. What was his tone there after the game, after a tough loss like that?
Well, first of all, he was late. I mean, he was late.
So yeah, it must have been a message in that locker room.
Yeah, message in the locker room. But typically, when he's late after a loss like that, then stuff is like it's kind of like a sour mood. I mean, his tone was kind of like, typically, I hate to say it, but typically, Doc he's the master of excuses, like when they lose. Like if we're gonna be 100, right? He the type of dude that they won. Like, oh, win is a win. Dude, y'all just almost blew a 40-point lead, but he's saying a win is a win. Well, he was straight up. He was like, "Yo, we got a bus whip." You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And then somebody asked him about Kai Carlin, asked him about James, like, "Oh, he didn't have it tonight, right?" So I felt like he was a little frustrated, but I don't know if he was really frustrated at the questions. I think he was frustrated more so at this night. Sometimes he gets frustrated with the questions, right? But take it away from him. The mood, I didn't really like what I saw the mood in the locker room. Like again, we're talking about that this is like one loss and this and that. But I feel like the mood in the locker room, like, and Tobias even said it, and he says they look like they were defeated at times throughout the game, right? And that's something that they got to overcome. But I also think that the leaders of this locker room, of this team, Joel Embiid and James Harden, they got to lead, and they got to lead not just vocally, but they got to lead based on their performances. They've been doing that throughout. James, when we look at it, James was extremely careless with the ball. Like there was one time where he tried to do a behind the back pass and Drew was right there waiting for it and went the other way and then did like a nice alley oop to Giannis. Like stuff like that can happen. I mean, it can. And I get it. James is an elite player, a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer. He one of the all-time greats, but you can't make passes like that. You just can't do it. You can't be careless with the ball.
Especially when you know who's around. Drew Holiday, he studies. He's one of the best defensive perimeter players in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to know when that stuff, we see it all the time because we watch every dribble, every game that these guys play. Someone like Drew Holiday, who is so good at what he does, he's going to sniff that stuff out.
Yeah, you're gonna sniff it out exactly, and then you going. That's going. That's an easy layup the other end. Like you just can't do it, and you just can't. You just can't. Also, there were certain things that I felt like Doc did that. I mean, the whole thing, like certain things, like James messed up. I felt like Doc messed up. There was Paul Reed was the only one dude. It was two dudes on there who didn't quit. Daniel House Jr. and Paul Reed. And he took Paul Reed out of the game. Now, don't get me wrong. Paul Reed was getting baked by Giannis, but so was everyone else on the floor. Everybody was getting baked. So he takes Paul Reed out of the game and brings in PJ Tucker. And Milwaukee responds with a 7-0 run. Boom.
Giannis had a 7-0 run.
Yeah, Giannis had a 7-0 run. So you like, game over. And then it's like, I don't know. I just didn't like what I saw. And I think a lot of that, people in the locker room probably saw what we saw. They saw how James was careless with the ball. They saw the rotations. They saw all this other stuff. And they probably was like, yo, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Now everybody's saying all the right things, but they had to be upset about something. But I don't know, man. It's like I just didn't like the mood that I saw in the locker room. I did not like that at all. It was too morgy to me. In a way, some people might say that's cool because they lost, but I just didn't like the mood that I.
Now my question is, you see how Milwaukee responded after getting thumped by 41 to another top 3 team in the Eastern Conference in the Boston Celtics. Now, do the Sixers respond in kind by hosting the Boston Celtics on Tuesday? That's where we measure some of these things. Now, we can take away what we want to take away from regular season games, and knowing that they have 4 games left, one of them being Boston, and they might win Thursday and Friday, hosting Miami and then traveling to Atlanta on Friday. But that's also, where we're going to look at this basketball team, Keith, on Tuesday and see, do you respond the same way that the Milwaukee Bucks responded after their beatdown against a good team, sending a message to Boston, hey, you've gotten us the other 3 times. Although you won the season series and our records are not going to be tied, so there's no tie-breaking situations. However, we know we're going to get past our first round matchup. We know you are also. So when we see you in that second round starting in TD in Boston, we're going to be ready. And this is a reminder for you that we feel like we can beat you. You guys got us the last time. And when Jason Tatum hit that shot, and you beat us the other 2 times. But in this one, this is the one that you're also going to remember because we just took care of this one, as we will see you in 2 weeks as we start off round 2. So how do the Sixers respond? Will they respond? And that is the question.
Yeah, man, and that's a question I can't answer.
No, you cannot. We won't know until
Yeah,
10:30 on Tuesday night.
yeah. I mean, you hope that they would respond well, but I don't know, dude. I don't know. Like, I mean, I see. That's the crazy part, D, because I think we're gonna learn a whole lot about the Sixers. Tuesday night, we're gonna learn a lot about that DNA to see if they got that DNA, if they got that dog in them, because you can always say, "Oh, it's just a regular season game," and do some of the stuff I said in the first segment. You know what I mean? Like, let it go. But again, you're right. We're basing them off of Boston, Milwaukee. Here's the thing: Boston goes out there and looks horrible against the Washington Wizards, right? Or whatever. And then they come back and just smack the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yep.
Milwaukee looks horrible against Boston, lose by 41, and comes back and smacks the Sixers. Now it's the Sixers' opportunity.
It's their turn.
It's their turn. And we're going to find out if they can step up and do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, it's not step out. Yeah,
it's going to be one that we're waiting for, and Keith, we definitely look forward to it. I'll be there, you'll be there, and the building will be full. It's an 8:00 game on the Tuesday night, nationally televised. It's going to be packed in there. It's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere at the center. Was it a playoff-like in Milwaukee at Fiserv?
It was. I mean, yes, no. I mean, it was packed. I mean. But it was also, you got to understand, like, they came out on fire. Like, You know what I mean? So the crowd was going to get.
They were into it right away.
Yeah, they was into it. Yep.
Yeah, can the Sixers do the same on Tuesday night, hosting the Celtics? 8:00 again, man. It's going to be packed. Listen, I know you've been in a lot of buildings watching them play basketball, especially in these big games and playoff games. Nothing like the center too, right? When everybody's in there and they're on top of you like that, and a good game is happening, that's a good crowd.
Yeah, that's a good crowd.
That's a good crowd. So we will find out. We'll talk about that on our next podcast. But before we step away for this quick timeout, we will get on the other side and talk about something that kind of went viral from Keith's great story on theinquirer.com on Sunday about Joel Embiid, speaking about the accomplishments of his teams in the last 6 years, where he's played in every season as a full-time player and as an all-star. But some things I think, knowing Keith the way that I do know, and a little bit of Joel Embiid, how I know him, of how things may have gotten taken out of context just a little bit with what was reported. We'll do that, or written, how they took it. We'll get into that next final segment right here on Locked On 76ers as we get ready to start off this spring, which is already underway. We're also underway with the Built March Madness bracket, which is here. Final game playing on Monday night. And with that, we know that you have your favorite bar or puff. And now it's time to make it count. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorites. You know, I'll be voting for the cookies and cream bar / puff. And if you want the same with let's say the 76ers to win, then you'll be voting for that bar too. Support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you will be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Everybody likes free. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built bars and the best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. How about that? Again, free, springtime. You can have those for a snack when you move. Maybe you're going out for a run. The weather's perfect. You can do that. A quick morning workout, an afternoon, evening workout, whatever it might be for you to use your Built bar or puff. You'll have that as a 12-month subscription, Free. Look at that. You got to try Built. Built, the best protein bars ever. Seriously, they're so amazing. You won't even think they're good for you. What makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're all in high in protein, low in sugar, covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. Run to builtmarchmadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff. It's like stealing. That's why you hear those sirens there, and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March. So hop in and support your pick right here again with Built. See, don't you love how I have all those props where I can have those sounds like sirens are right there to come and check out for our podcast when we make those reads? Isn't that
Mm-hmm.
perfect? It's set up
Yeah,
perfect.
it sounded like
Sirens.
the hood to me.
Just like that. Sirens. Done. All right, Keith, you had a great story on Sunday about Joel Embiid and his 6 years in the NBA and 6 playoff appearances, all five of them, pardon me, 5 playoff appearances. This will be year number 6, 5 second round exits, 1 first round exit that was in the bubble, and at least 2 of them we expected them to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, like really expected them to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and one of which was the last time for year 1 of Doc Rivers, where they had the number 1 seed during that 7-2 game season, and they lose to Atlanta as the number 1 seed. Now we have another opportunity for them to do so. But with that, they've had 4 50-win seasons, one with that one season where they had the number 1 seed in 72 games. Keith, you talked about it last week, 49 wins in a 72-game season. Based on, how that goes, that's like equivalent to another 50-win season for, the 10 less games. And they have had a lot of regular season success. And even the success in the playoffs, we thought that they were good enough to get past those second rounds. They have not. And B mentioned how you can't overlook those things as part of them also still wanting to win the championships that's eluded them these past couple of years. But I think, Keith, in reading your story, knowing how you report, and then seeing how it's out there on social media and they're only showing the clip. They're only showing the clip. They're showing tagging you in them, let's say on Twitter, but they're not giving you the link to the story. They're not giving you the entire story. And if you don't always have a subscription to the Enquirer.com, which you should because Keith is writing there, then you may not get the full context of what things were. So, Keith, could you kind of clear things up a little bit? What you asked Embiid, you being around Embiid, where you maybe would have questioned this type of response in the past. But I know you, so I also know that this year you felt things were genuinely coming out of his mouth and what he meant.
Yeah, I think it's a joke that we gotta clarify something because, this is a statement. I've been a journalist for maybe 30 years, and I don't like the state that we're in right now. Like, it's to a point where I'll write an article and somebody will aggregate it and they'll go on social media and they'll say something and it has nothing to do with what I wrote. Like, it's the whole false context. You guys don't know how many times I had to reach out to reporters and say, look, dude, that's wrong. Like, the stuff that you wrote is wrong. The guy didn't say what he said. Well, what this article was all about, y'all, was about, and I think that some of you guys may know this. Earlier in the season, Devon and I, we got into it. We not really got into it, but we had a debate over should we celebrate regular season success, right? And I was like, no. If they don't go out of the second round, the season is a failure, a complete failure. Devon was like, no, what happens is you separate the two. Like, if they're having a good season, you have to celebrate it because they're having a good season. Well, I wrote this column basically acknowledging Devon. Like, the thing is, you have to celebrate what the Sixers doing. I'm like, Joel didn't say that. I'm saying it. But what I did is I asked Joel questions about this thing, about the fact that, yes, the Sixers have won over a 6-season stretch. They have won 50 games in 4 of the 6 seasons. All 4 times, and they have a 4-game, they have a stretch of 4 consecutive seasons with 50 or more wins when they play 82 games, right? So the other 2 seasons that they didn't do it, they played fewer than 82. Now, here's the deal. You asked Joel about that. Joel says, I really don't get excited about that. And he says, he says, it doesn't mean a lot to me because I want to win a championship. But I'm paraphrasing him. But what he's saying is, but people should be happy with it, like, or the fans, because that means that we have been competitive. So that's what it is. And then at the end, what I wrote, the kicker was that this is the first time that has happened for this long since the Dr. J era when they had 10 straight. No, they went nine out of 10 seasons with 50 or more wins. And then Joel comes back and he says, look, this is a good thing because yes, we all want to win a championship, but would you rather basically be a competitor or would you rather be a team struggling to make the playoffs? So that's
And
basically
that's why the rebuild happened, because they were tired of just hovering
exactly.
there in the middle.
And that's what it was talking about. So when I see stuff and people send stuff to me and send it to us, and they're like, to me, you're like, damn, did you read the article? Like, why are you sending this? Did you read the article? Like, don't send nothing where I'm being misquoted where a guy, because that's where you get a little offended at, because it's kind of like, hold up, don't send this shit. I mean, don't send it because you're not reading the article. So then the guy who tagged it is like, he's trying to like take a shot at Joel or whatever, but he didn't read the article or he didn't say anything. So to me, that's where you get the fake news at. And I just don't have any time for that, because with Joel basically said, I want to win a chip.
That's what
He
he
like
said.
early on, I want to win a chip. But basically the article was about how how like you gotta give credit where credit due. The
And
fact
it's not
remains,
ignoring the playoffs
no,
at
it's not.
all.
But the fact remains is, and this is a fact, the 76ers and have won 50 or more games the last four times that they had an 82 game season. The last time that they did anything close to that was from 1977 through 1986.
Wow. It's a good
The,
stretch.
the last time.
Yeah.
That's what that article was about. But a couple aggregators took it and wrote some other stuff. But the article is about the stretch that the 76ers are on right now. And like you said, some good stuff. A lot of people don't know that. But a lot of people didn't read the article. But some clown, and that's right, I'm calling him a clown. Some clown went out there and took a snippet, not the whole quote, but a snippet of a quote so they can get clicks. And that's bad. That's bad to me.
And normally what that should do is pique the interest of, I'm very curious of what this whole thing is. Let me go read this story that has Keith's at Pompey on Sixers Twitter handle tagged in the tweet. And then you go read the story. So, just it's unfortunate because Joel Embiid is simply talking about he wants the fans to feel good about what they've been able to accomplish. He's openly talked about how they couldn't do it without the fans too, backing them this entire time. But the ultimate goal for everyone, including the fans and obviously the team that's taken the floor, is to win championships. And unfortunately, they were just clipping the one quote and putting it out there. And as things have gone in the past, when Embiid has talked about the MVP, um, getting a bad reputation about him speaking only about the MVP and ignoring the fact that he also talks about winning those championships as well, then that's how, now he's looked at more in that light than the light that he really should be looked at as a great player trying to get over the hump. He hasn't been perfect. Not in the least has he been perfect. However, this season, the stuff that people have asked of him, he has been doing it, including talking about when the questions come his way about MVPs, winning the championship. So great piece, Keith. Everybody go check out Keith's work on the Inquirer.com. You can also check out the links when he posts the stories on Pompey on Sixers. to check those things out. Go read the article. It was a pretty good article, not just because you talked about our conversation. Thank you, though. That was pretty cool. Everybody, thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen again every day. We really appreciate it. 70 Locked On 76ers your first listen. On our next episode, we will preview the Sixers and the Celtics. This is a huge game again for the team. Some of what we talked about today, but we'll also get into a little bit deeper in this game on our next podcast on Tuesday. Now, make your second listen Locked On NBA for Locked On experts covering the biggest stories from around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, do you mind letting the good folks know where they can find us? I told them to go to Inquirer.com and at Pompey on Sixers. Tell them where else they can find us.
You can find this, like my man D said before, wherever you get your podcast at, it's free and available. But whenever you go to our YouTube channel, click on the Liberty Bell and you become a new subscriber. But you need to listen to my man D on the Divine Giving Show. Tonight is going to be from 6 to midnight from the arena. So you're going to get that feel from 6 to midnight, Divine Giving Show on 97.5 FM. But you can also follow D on Twitter at DivineG975. DivineG975. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. And like he said, you can read my stuff in the Philadelphia Inquirer. But make sure you get started tonight at 6 p.m. listening to the Divine Giving Show.
Maybe a guest will stop by or two. And we can have some guests on the air. We'll see. Thanks, Keith. Thanks, everybody. As always, we start this week off, the final week in the NBA. And we, of course, will be here with you all week and through the playoffs. So a big week here as the Sixers close the season down. Big game tomorrow night. We'll break it all down on our next episode right here on Locked On 76ers. Thank you all. Keith, as always, thanks, man.
Peace, bro. Peace.